Imagine a world where humanity suddenly disappears. Whether it's a global pandemic, a natural cataclysm, or an inexplicable phenomenon, the result is the same: no humans on Earth. But what would happen to our planet after this disappearance? The first dramatic changes would take place in cities. Without human intervention, pumping systems that prevent subway flooding in cities like London or New York would stop, and tunnels would quickly fill with water. Factories and power plants, including nuclear ones, would be left unattended, increasing the risk of fires and radioactive contamination. Mountains of plastic waste would persist for thousands of years, while other types of pollution would gradually decompose, although their impact would be felt for a long time. Outside cities, nature would begin to recover quickly. Insect populations would explode, unaffected by pesticides, leading to an increase in birds and other animals. Vegetation would reclaim agricultural land, freed from the harmful effects of chemicals. The first week on a planet without humans would be the most difficult for domestic animals. Abandoned, they would have to search for food. Houseplants, however, would have no chance. Soon the world would become radioactive. Our nuclear power plants produce radioactive waste. Spent nuclear fuel pools must be constantly cooled with water. To maintain water circulation, electricity is needed. Without human supervision, nuclear power plants around the world would begin to lose power. The water cooling the spent nuclear fuel would stop circulating, heat up and boil, and nuclear waste would catch fire. Powerful explosions would follow, and the planet would be covered with dangerous radioactive substances. The entire planet's ecosystem would begin to wither. Nothing would survive such a wave of radiation. Moreover, many chemical elements would remain dangerous for 300 years. Others, like plutonium, would remain radioactive for 240,000 years. 1 year after our disappearance, nature would begin to reclaim roads and highways. Everything would be covered in moss and fungi. With the first winter without humans, roads would begin to crack and crumble. Melted snow would fill holes and cracks. Later, plants would sprout from the cracks. In forests poisoned by radiation, of course, birds would not sing, but in remote areas where radiation would not reach, animal populations would increase sharply. Humans would no longer hunt or destroy natural habitats. Wild animals freed from human pressure would expand their territories and thrive. After 50 years, significant changes would take place in our empty cities. Public squares would be filled with young trees. Historic buildings would be surrounded by forests. Underground, for half a century, no one would supervise the pumps that prevent the subway from flooding with sewage. The subway would turn into a network of underground rivers. The steel columns supporting city streets would bend, and water would flood important buildings. The condition of buildings and houses would leave much to be desired. Leaky roofs, rust everywhere. In large cities, streets would be covered with shards of glass falling from skyscrapers. 150 years. Collapsed skyscrapers would turn into piles of rubble. Stone buildings would remain intact. All banknotes stored in banks would be like new, although they would lose their value. Works of art in museums would have less luck. Without climate control and electricity, museum deposits would be severely affected. They would not be protected from leaks, and mold would develop. Only 1,000-year-old ceramics would resist. Over 500 years, forests would grow on the site of our homes. Many aluminum and stainless steel utensils would remain in the ground. Every piece of asphalt would be swallowed by trees and grass, and the temperature would drop across the planet. Continuing to regenerate, the atmosphere would undergo a series of changes. Without humans, the volume of carbon dioxide would decrease significantly. The number of animals, which initially would increase sharply, would stabilize. Predators such as wolves would repopulate Europe and hunt in packs. After 1 million years, would anything remain of human civilization? The faces of former U.S. presidents on Mount Rushmore would still be visible, but with eroded details. The Egyptian pyramids and the Great Wall of China would also be present, but hard to recognize. 5 billion years. By this time, all traces of human presence on Earth would be erased. The sun would expand and swallow the Earth. However, the Voyager space probe could carry our story into the depths of space, perhaps even being found by an alien civilization and revealing that once, on the distant planet Earth, humans lived. But even in this picture of disappearance, there is a spark of hope. For perhaps in this vast universe, our story is not just a faded memory, but a seed planted in the cosmic fabric. Perhaps the echoes of our curiosity, love, and creativity will vibrate eternally in space like a faint but eternal melody.